think that what's really happening,
Yeah.
in the capital H sense of the word happening in the universe, is that the universe has manifested, so it's fallen into unconsciousness. And the only thing that's happening as a general force of evolution is that it's slowly waking up to itself.
Oh, sure.
So that everything is moving in that direction.
Yes.
And that generally speaking, you could define right action as something that would be in support of that awakening process.
If you define it that way, sure. Right. Right. It just happens that way without a sort of an intention to do so. It just happens.
Is it your experience then that when you act, do you have a sense of what the ramifications are, or the?
It's not something I ever considered.
You don't consider it?
Why would I consider it? In other words,
not to make the choice,
right?
But I'm just asking whether cognitively you have any idea. You're just in the flow, and things come up, and you decide, okay, this inspiration has come up, or this inclination to do something has knocked on my door 3 times. I guess I'm going to do it.
Well, not even that, really.
Not even like that.
But see, if from the inside, we're no longer acting from an individual viewpoint, and that is a big and enormous if. Just because we've had a spiritual awakening does not mean that that's what's happening. In fact, frequently it doesn't mean that that is happening at all yet. But when that does happen, then it's not that we've become holy or saintly or anything like that, because those are other moral judgmental standards that the mind comes up with. But it's just the truth is now functioning without the distorting influence of a conflicted individual. Now the truth is happening through everybody, but when it happens, it comes through the distortion of the conflicted individual and takes on that flavor. So that's why I say that for me, the only thing that's really happening, the only motivation for anything, is simply the truth, and that's all. And the consequences. The only reason that I would ever go back and look at try to foresee the consequences is because when I foresee the consequences, then maybe I won't do what's truthful. You see, now I got 2 things to look at. What my mind thinks the consequence might be, but I still have truth right here, right now. Do you see what I mean? And so in me, it's always the truth. I can look back, and then you look over your shoulder almost, and you look at the consequences, because by and large, of course, enlightened action tends to not leave this terrible wake behind you. I mean, in other words, if I was to move through life and leaving a path of destruction behind me, that would be a pretty good indication that I'm not nearly as enlightened as I might like to think I am.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of impulsive people in the world who might be under the illusion that they're operating from some kind of a cosmic inspiration.
Absolutely.
And so
that's why I say the truth is about the most dangerous thing you can unleash on humanity, because it has equal power to open up to truth and freedom, and it has equal power to be used by delusion
to justify
everything, even if that justification is happening very unconsciously, and in one sense innocently, because it is unconscious. It has equal power to be misused.
Well, speaking of misuse, that brings me to my next question. So, as many of us are aware, so many spiritual teachers have gotten into trouble because even those teachers who are very awake, because of their misuse of their position, and whether it's through sexual misconduct or financial gain, or falling prey to the power that other people give to them, I'd imagine that the power and authority of being in a teacher, as a spiritual teacher, could be intoxicating. And I was thinking about this today, that in writing my questions, that only a few years ago, about maybe 3.5 years ago, you were giving satsangs to a room of like 3 people.
Yeah.
And now your audiences are sometimes 500 people at, let's say, at Interdirections gathering. And you've published a book, and now you're running a sizable non-profit organization. Can you talk about how you handle the power that people entrust you with, and whether that's been a challenge for you? Do you worry that people are reliant on you and that they're making life decisions based on things that you say?
Yeah, good question. I'll take the last one first, and how about if we work our way backwards?
Okay.
No, I don't. I don't sit around being worried by it. I sit around and watch it, like I would watch a drama or a TV show or a movie, in the sense that I'm not really able to control other people's behavior. There's nothing in me that even wants to control other people's behavior. People are going to, by and large, they do what they want to do. For me, the power of being a spiritual teacher, the power of sort of the innate authority that people project onto you, and all the authority that it means to be a spiritual teacher, to me personally, there's nothing appealing at all about it. I mean, there's just nothing that's juicy about it for me. In other words, I don't appreciate the power. The power is not entertaining, is not in any way entertaining to me. The use of power is actually very distasteful to me. It just, whenever power is being used, it has a certain feel to it. It has a certain sense to it, and I find that there's just nothing whatsoever attractive about power. For me, it's sort of one of those things that I got to put up with to do what I do.
When you were refining the form in which you were going to hold public meetings, was it something that, because the power is distasteful to you, did you experiment with sort of more of a roundtable approach, where there was crosstalk in the room, or where you weren't so much of a focus and up on the stage, and with everyone looking at the teacher?
Yeah. Well, I would say there was experimenting from the beginning. I mean, that's how it all developed, out of experimentation. It wasn't sort of conscious in the sense of, well, let me try this and see how it works, let me try that. It was just very spontaneous. What seems to work, what seems to be working right now, what seems to get in the way. So if we get a group of people that are all start to comment on each other's experience, I saw very quickly that becomes chaotic, that indeed does get in the way. So I sort of eliminated that. So the experimentation just sort of happened without intention. I was really interested, and still remain to be primarily interested, in a teacher. It's all about, to me, what works. It's very practical. What really works? And that's all that anything I do as a teacher, from my point of view, that's all it's about. What works.
I presume that the aim, when you say what works in helping people to wake up.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it helps in helping people to wake up. Yeah.
Along these lines, you've said that, I think in passing, that you don't have any long-term plans, that you sort of play.
I don't even have short-term plans.
You don't. Okay. You don't even have short-term plans. You play it by ear, waiting to see what comes up next. So maybe the next part of my question is irrelevant, but I'll ask anyway. Do you have plans to continue teaching for a significant amount of time? If you stopped seeing your students today, there could be some fairly bereft people in the audience. Is there a contingency plan in case of something like that happening?
If I decide to stop teaching?
Yeah.
There's no contingency plan, no. Well, Bob, I have my life scheduled probably 1.5 years in advance right now, and it keeps growing all the time. So in that sense, I could say, yeah, it looks like I'll be teaching next year.
But do you have a feeling for whether you want to make this a lifelong career?
I just don't think about it.
You don't think about it?
No. I don't, and I mean, to be quite honest, I really don't even know how to think about it, to be really honest. It's not something that I intentionally do or will myself to do or not to do. It's just sort of like, in my world, it's just what's happening right now. And I know that if I woke up tomorrow and it was really clear not to teach, I'd quit teaching tomorrow, period. That would be the end of it. And since the relative world the way it functions, and I'm planned out